old Joe Rogan podcast with Robert Greene.
Over and over again.
Well, I'm glad you bring it up. It's a great story. It's kind of another like Freddie Roach type thing.
Let's
He's,
get
he's,
into
he's a white guy who happens to be tall, but he loves basketball. He's like 9 years old, and I know this myself because I loved basketball when I was a kid. Just the sound of the ball swishing through the net. He just loved the sound of the sound of that, the feel of it. So he had a sort of visceral love of the game, but he stunk at it. He was tall, awkward, slow. There's no way he'd become good at it. So he decided he was going to train himself from a very early age. And I call it, they have a concept called deliberate practice, where you learn to practice what you're not good at. Because we often, if we're taking up archery or basketball, we find something that we're good at and we tend to just repeat that, and then our practice becomes very one-sided. Deliberate practice is to practice on what you're not good at. I call it resistance practice. Actually practicing at what.
Yeah, that feels true because like when you find something you're good at, you tend to stick with it, and I think in the short term it feels good, but when you feel like you're stuck and like you always rely on something that doesn't really serve you in the long run, it just ends up hurting you more. And type shit.
Was painful in enjoying the pain, and that's Bill Bradley. He put these special glasses on his head that prevented him from looking down, so he would dribble on a court for 10 hours, or not 10 hours, 3 or 4 hours, and he couldn't look down at his feet, which trained him to dribble. That's the worst thing you can have if you're always looking down. You're not able to see what's going on the court. So he did that. He went on a cruise with his parents across to England, and he wanted to be able to practice there. He brought his basketball, and below deck there were these incredibly long alleys that would go from one end of the ship to the other. They were very narrow. He would put on his special glasses and he would dribble back and forth in this narrow area so that he could dribble with absolute, complete control. He devised all of these other exercises where he could.
It's interesting because like I feel like there's always things where you can like have special drills you can do, all these like very unique drills you can do, but I feel like it all doesn't matter if it's not under the principle of the first base principle of, you know, doing what's really necessary, focusing on your weaknesses. And I think a lot of the things that people do, or very successful people do, are based on these like first base principles.
Train himself to see almost behind himself, or at least way over to the side, on and on until he became so good that by the time he got into college at Princeton, and then later he played for the New York Knicks in the 70s with all the great championship teams, people would look at Bill Bradley and go, my God, this guy he was born with a basketball in his hand. He's naturally gifted. He is so graceful. He has eyes in the back of his head. He can make a pass to Walt Frazier without even looking. They didn't realize that he had gone through the most insanely rigorous, painful, deliberate form of practice ever invented by a single athlete at a very early age. And it made the game fun for him. It was sure it was a lot of pain, but by the time he got good and he was in high school, all the girls were admiring him. Got invited to go to Princeton. I mean, it paid off, and he got a huge level of pleasure, and the game became incredibly fun. But it was all based on these insane moments and periods of pain that he put himself through.
That's a beautiful story. God, I love that story. That's amazing. That's such a huge lesson.
Type shit.